Hi, thanks for joining our webinar. We're gonna give some time for people to join in so that everyone can be ready. Thanks, I know it's the middle of the day. Hopefully this works out for you guys. My name's Susan Stirrup.
Hi everybody, I'm Kate. Susan and I are here to help you and to answer questions, and we will be posting this webinar online when we're done, so that will also be helpful. Welcome, we're getting more people on.
How many, Kate, are we expecting?
15? 15, but I bet you we're going to start in a minute. Some people come in late and some people, their plans change.
When you folks have questions, you're going to want to use the Q&A button at the bottom, and Kate will filter those into me.
Oh, someone is trying to come on, trying to sign in. Oh, hold on. Go ahead and start, Susan. Okay. And I'm going to email this person back who's trying to get on.
Okay. So again, my name is Susan Stirrup, and I'm your Challenge Master for Colorado for Rising Stars. Thank you for stepping up to volunteer in this role. I assume most of you are team managers, or maybe you're a school coordinator, or just wanted to learn more about the challenge this year. So it's called Pop Up, and it's our this is the team manager training that I have put together. So why Rising Stars? Every year, I gotta move these people here. Every year, DI writers develop a new Rising Stars for Early Learning challenge. The focus is really on creating a fun learning environment for these kids and allowing them to be creative. It's designed specifically for preschool through second grade kids. So on your team, you're going to have a wide variety. You could have kids as young as 4 and kids as old as 6 or 7. And as you know, in that age range, the developmental, change, it's very different and can seem very big at times. But it's still an opportunity for these kids to be creative, learn some simple building and construction skills, become comfortable working in teams, and learn how to speak in front of an audience. It's a very low-risk thing for them to do and something that they can see great success at and help build their confidence in those areas. The challenge is non-competitive for these guys. It helps ease the pressure and lets them play and experiment with their solutions. There is a showcase option that I think most teams do choose to do, which allows teams to perform their solutions at a tournament. So working with the littles, if you've already started your team, I'm sure that you've already come into some challenges already and kind of trying to get to know those kids. But obviously a shorter meeting than you would with older kids. It would be suggested probably about an hour. That's probably about all that they can sit down and do stuff for. And then even within your meeting, you want to make sure that you have shorter blocks of activities. Little kids, 10 to 15 minutes attention span maybe. So you're going to need to be changing it up every so often. So in an hour, you're probably going to want to have 4 or 5 different things that you are doing, or different parts of the challenge that you're working on. You want to alternate between doing activities where they are, physically active versus thinking activities. And as you get to know your group, you're going to know more about them and what they can and cannot do, and how this works better within your group. Girls versus boys, there's a difference too in what they want to do. So just try to be mindful of that as you're getting together with the kids to make the meeting the most, what's the right word? The most productive that you can. Make sure that you are teaching them and helping them respect space and cleaning up after every meeting. I know some of you might be working at a school, some of you might be in your own home, some of you might be rotating homes of other families that have kids on the team. But wherever they are, make sure that you've allotted time at the end to make sure that you clean up. You don't want to leave that up to the parents when everybody leaves, or even leave it up to you. You're doing a lot. So make sure that that's part of your routine each time that you meet. Again, if you have questions, feel free to be using that Q&A key at the bottom of your screen, and then Kate will send those to me when it's appropriate. So I want to talk a little bit more about your meetings and what those might look like. It's best if you try to have 2 adults at every meeting. Again, these are young kids, and you just never know. Something might happen to someone, you just might need, it's good to have a couple of people to just kind of help that out. This could be 2 team managers, or if you don't have that, it could be 1 team manager and maybe another parent, or maybe there's a teenager, maybe there's an older sibling of one of the kids that would be willing to help out during the meetings. You just probably want another set of hands, particularly if you're using tools, like, if you're using scissors or glue, or, it's just nice to have another person there. Always, always, always remember safety. That's probably the one and only rule for Rising Star, and really the main rule, safety first. You want to make sure that everybody is always safe at all times, whether that involves you're doing an outside activity or with materials or whatnot you might be using in your home, however that looks. Be prepared. As soon as you try to go set up something separate, that's when chaos will break loose. So make sure you know what you're going to do. Have a plan. Have all your materials set up and ready prior to kids arriving so that you can move, boom, 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 from one activity to the next without having a lot of just kind of that downtime or that crazy time in between. Snacks are always good. It's always good to provide snacks for them. I usually, when I do my teams, I usually ask the parents to provide that, or else I've bought a whole bunch, like from Costco, and I just have them in my basement, and I bill the parents for that, just so that, you have that. You do want to, of course, make sure you know your team. Are there any allergies? Because you certainly don't want to deal with that. So make sure that you have sent out a form or ask the parents if there's any sorts of circumstances that you need to be aware of in terms of that.
Also, I think what can happen sometimes is people get so taken away with the snack that they forget that they're there for DI. So make sure you limit your snack time, or have them be running around outside if you're at school on the playground or something while they're eating snacks, so that I've had Rising Stars teams where snack can take 40 minutes because the kids just milk it for all it's worth. So make sure you have an end time for your snack time.
Yeah. Another good thing that I have done with some older teams, and it might work depending on your team with the younger kids, sometimes eating snack can be a calm time too, where you're asking them to brainstorm or whatnot. Because if you have them all sitting at a table, that can also maybe come into like a thinking part of it also. If you can incorporate that, it might be helpful. So what do you do? At every meeting, of course, you want to have fun. Like, this is Rising Stars. You want to make sure that these kids are having a good time and progressing towards their goal. But really, you want to make sure that they're having fun. They're enjoying what they're choosing to do. As this challenge, is called Pop-Up, and it's about pop-up books, you should be reading. Read books aloud at every meeting. And you want to look at both fiction and nonfiction. Right? You're supposed to explore both of those during the course of the challenge. So read those aloud to the kids. You probably have a range of readers in your group. Some maybe are pretty good at reading. Some maybe can't read hardly at all. So you want to make sure that you're modeling that with your reading and using your voice and that kind of stuff. You want to do an instant challenge at every meeting. And I will be giving, towards the end, I'll talk a little bit about instant challenge, but you want to make sure you're incorporating that somehow every time into the meeting. And then, of course, have fun. Always have fun. That's something that you want to keep your mind on with Rising Stars too. Now, within all of this and within the goals that the team sets or whatever, you want to make sure that you're realistic. Like I've said many times, there's a lot of diversity in those developmental stages and ability in that Rising Stars age range. Even if you have all 6-year-olds, everybody grows at a different rate. So even though they all might be in the same grade, they're probably at all different developmental stages. And so you want to make sure you're aware of that. So what you want to be doing is kind of make yourself aware of what kids can do, what kinds of tasks. Some might be really good at reading. Some might be really good at writing. Some maybe can't use scissors at all, but are really good about organizing how things should look. So make sure you're aware, do enough activities that you're aware of what each kid is good at, and set your expectations accordingly. Oops. Kate, something just happened here. Oh, well.
You look good to me. What's going on?
I don't have the pictures of you guys, of us anymore.
Oh, don't worry about that. I can still see you.
So, you want to make sure that you avoid comparing one team member to another. So just because one kid can read and another can't, that's not a point that you should necessarily point out, make sure that every kid has value, whether they can read or not, whether they can use scissors or not. Make sure that you're being good to all the kids. Every child, as we know, is good at something. Be mindful of what that is and try to allow each child to succeed at their level. So as you're setting up the instant challenge or whatever, make sure that you have things that everybody can do. You want everyone to feel successful and feel valued during this experience. I put together a suggested season timeline just to kind of help you along your way. This is assuming that your tournament is in March. I know there's a few towards the end of February, so you might have to adjust a little bit. But October and November, so some of you maybe have already started, some of you are just getting started. You want to be doing those get to know you sorts of games and activities and skill development activities. Examples of things that you might choose to do. Play charades. Kids don't have to read to play charades, right? And they need to work on their acting skills. So that is a fun thing to do. Maybe you have a costume box or a prop box at home and that you can ask kids to, grab a costume or grab a prop. Okay, oh wow, they've got the frog costume. How might a frog act when they're angry? Or how might just kind of give them little prompts and let them kind of run with that and see what they can do. Have kids do impromptu skits. Maybe you just have like a little blurb that you want to tell them and they can kind of figure out a little play based on that. Again, nothing formal, but you just want to get them used to that acting, that performing in front of a stage, in front of people. And you can talk about just those basic skills during that time. You also can be working on your team name, team sign. A lot of teams have a song or a chant or something that they like to do at every meeting, and then they can kind of show that off at tournament also. So maybe you develop that as well. You want to develop the idea of creating a story. So ideas of that might be read the beginning of a story, but have the team come up with the endings. Because at this age, a lot of them are just, they're learning to read. So they're reading kind of whole books. They're not, doing parts. And so try this, try to read a little bit and have them come up with the endings of it. You might have heard of the game where they do the chain story, where one person maybe starts with a sentence or a word and then the next person adds on and so forth. And so that can be really fun to kind of get them thinking on their feet and the idea of a story. You also want to, during this time, be introducing the pop-up book, and you should have some. I'm sure your local library has some you can check out within your team. The challenge that DI publishes that Kate emailed you a little bit ago. There are some suggested books in there, but just, it's great if you have some examples so that they can see what a pop-up book is. So then once you hit December, so next month, you really want to introduce that challenge. You want to start talking about the different elements of the challenge so the kids can be accustomed to it. So read the challenge with them. And as hopefully you've read through your packet, it's not super long. So each part is maybe a little paragraph. So you can kind of talk about the different elements of the challenge. You might want to talk about specific things you have to do. Maybe you have a big poster board or something where you can make a list. Here's the things that we need to accomplish for this challenge. What do we have to do for those? Because as you know, there's the improv and whatnot, and we'll go over those in more detail. But you want to be talking about the specifics of it. Characters and costumes. Every child needs to be in a costume and have a character for this particular challenge. So you can kind of start talking about what that might look like. And then possible settings, props, we're going to need to make for that.
Susan,
yes.
You have a question about, are you sharing your slide deck?
What does that mean?
Can you email out your slides?
I have sent it to all of the RCMs for the group or for each region. So they should have them. Hopefully they're sharing them with you. But yeah, I don't mind sending them out to you guys individually too. Will I have an email list?
Yes, we can email them out, guys.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then once we hit January, so after the new year, after the holidays, you really want to get to business on the challenge. You want to start building that stuff that you guys had planned and everything in December. You do want to create a timeline with deadlines for the various requirements. And that often, if you're in a constant meeting place, it's good to maybe hang that in the room that you are in and you can kind of cross off days as you go. Or maybe you can pick up a calendar, one of those desk calendars, and have written it on it, and then the kids can cross off, hey, we met this goal, or we got to really start working on this because that's coming up. Because from now until March to them, is an eternity, right? They don't really understand time management. And so anything you can do to make that more concrete is really going to help them be successful. So like I said, consider hanging this up in your space and potentially refer back to that at each meeting, crossing off days and deadlines as they are met. If you're not meeting always in the same place, that calendar idea might be good, or something that you can roll up, like a butcher paper that you could roll up and then bring to each meeting so the kids can stay focused with that. Help the kids assign tasks. It is unreasonable to think that every kid can work on every part of the challenge. So you want to, and that's again where those strengths are going to come up. If some kid's really great, very artistic, maybe they're going to want to help working more on the backdrops or the props. Maybe someone that's really good about putting stories together might be better with the script. And so kind of steer your kids. And during your meetings, you can have separate sessions. A few kids can be working on one part and other kids on another part during the meeting. There's no reason you all have to be doing every single part at every single meeting. And then once you hit February, you're now about, probably about a month away from your presentation. So keep working on the challenge. Plan to have kids practice presenting their performance at least 1 week prior to their showcase date. So map that out on your calendar. You want them to have rehearsed that with using an 8-minute time limit and so forth. Now, during the presentation at your tournament, they're not going to cut you off at 8 minutes, but they're probably going to want you to be wrapping it up around then. So it's good to make sure the kids are aware of that time.
And in reality, 8 minutes for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds is a long, long time. So most of them finish probably at 4.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, I think I'm the challenge master for South Metro. So I think, about 5 or 6 was like sort of the maximum for all of that. You might want to, like I said, invite parents to these presentations so that they are kind of aware of what's going on and the expectation of that. You might want to consider marking out a stage in your space so the kids can visualize the dimensions. In the guide, it says 8 by 10, but in reality, all of the Rising Stars Challenge Masters are going to try to give you as much space as possible. You will be in a classroom. So imagine a typical classroom, and the desks will probably be pushed to the back so that there can be sort of an audience. And then you'll get probably about the front third of the classroom to be able to present in. But kids, just kind of like with time, space is this, rolling. They don't really understand that either. So think about if it's nice weather, you can always just put like chalk lines out on your patio or something, or even back the cars out of the garage and have them work in the garage or something, just so they have a defined space when they're presenting so they can visualize that. You do want to practice having the kids carry in and set up their props as independently as possible. And I'll get to this in a future slide. You may have heard the phrase interference, and interference is definitely a big deal in the competitive challenges, but in Rising Stars, there is no interference. However, you want the kids to do as much as they can as possible. So to keep that in mind. It's much easier to not interfere than to interfere and try to pull back. So it's best to just let them do their thing. And then on showcase day, I'm going to go through sort of a general flow, but know that your region may have some differences that they do. So what is true of every region is about a couple weeks before your actual showcase day, you will either have a meeting or some sort of communication from your regional challenge master, and they will give you more details on your specific site. But in general, the kids do their performance and then they do instant challenge right afterwards. Sometimes I'll do this one. So in general, the kids do their performance and do instant challenge right afterwards. That performance could be in a specific Rising Stars room. So some regions have enough teams competing or presenting that they can have their own dedicated space for that. Other regions might only have a couple of teams. So they might put you like in the middle of the improv or at the beginning of science or something. So they might just sort of have you go in a different challenge. Either way, you'll get your certain time that you get to present and so forth. Instant challenge could be in the same room. They could have you do your performance and then do instant challenge right afterwards, or it could be in a room nearby. I know in South Metro and Cherry Creek, and I think Jeffco, we tend to have 2 rooms next door to each other. And so the kids do their performance and then we take the kids out of the room and just whisk them away next door into the instant challenge room, and they do that there. And generally during that time, then we have the parents remove all of the props from their main challenge, take it back to the car, and then they come back, and by that time the kids are done with instant challenge and they're able to just connect again. Some regions might have some other things that go on. They might have an ice cream social afterwards. They might have a Rising Stars parade. I know South Metro, and I'm pretty sure Cherry Creek do the parade to kind of end their day. They do a big parade before the awards night for that particular region. What should you bring to the tournament? Positive attitude and flexibility. As you know, there's going to be lots of kids, lots of parents, lots of things going on. So make sure that you just try to stay as positive as you can. Your attitude is going to set the tone for how the kids and the parents and the grandparents and everybody else react or behave on that day. You will want to bring your Starry Showcase form, which is in the back of your packet. And it's just a general form that asks you to kind of fill in some details about your project, because though your kids will know exactly what their play is about, sometimes when they present, that does not always get across to the appraisers. And so by filling out that form, it just helps the appraisers to understand, okay, I see what I'm looking for now. So when you turn in that form, and if you could bring a couple of those forms, that's usually helpful. The appraisers can take a look at those real quick before your kids do their show, and then they know what to expect and what to be looking for. You want to make sure you have all your props and all your costumes with you, including your improv items. So don't forget that you've got to bring that. Any supplies for fixing things, whether that's duct tape, some glue, stick, whatever you've used, things that might fall apart during transportation, just bring a few little supplies that you can fix that, or the kids can fix that. You do want to make sure, once you hear from your RCM about your site, and maybe you'll even see your site, set a meeting spot where your parents are going to convene and pick up their kids after Instant Challenge. So like I said, I think most people have the kids go to Instant Challenge and the parents take the props back out to the car or whatever, and then you can all meet again. And a lot of times there is a meeting spot at the tournament. Maybe it's the cafeteria, maybe, usually there's a spot that everyone kind of goes back to. So what to expect from us, from the people that are not competing. Expect lots of love and attention. Your challenge masters, your appraisers, they're all there just to see. They think these little kids are so cute, and it's so fun to see what they have done. That's our job. We're there to make sure that you guys have the best day ever. So make sure, feel loved by us. But keep in mind, be prepared for nervous kids, nervous parents. You yourself might be nervous. I know that sometimes that people just feel a little bit of pressure that day, though we try to minimize that. Generally, the team is separated from the parents before the performance. So usually how it goes is your team, you'll check in, and then, so performances are back to back. So once one performance has let out, we'll let the next performance into the room. And generally we have the parents bring the props in and just sort of drop them off by the door or by the stage. And then they can all take a seat. And the kids and the team manager are taken to a separate area just to be alone for a minute, just so that the team manager can have a conversation with them. Hey, remember we're doing this, just to chill them out, right? Because the kids are going to be all high energy, so you can just kind of get them to relax a little. And then the timekeeper announcer will call the team in, and everyone will cheer, and the kids will get to do their performance. When they call the team in, there will be time for the team to then reset up their stage so they can organize their props how they see fit. But whatever happens, it's fine. Whether there's meltdowns or what, it's going to be fine. It's Rising Stars. It's okay. We're just trying to, introduce the kids to this idea, let them have a good time, and feel positive about what they have accomplished. You will receive some feedback. You'll get what's called an appraiser form, and you'll get team sticky notes. Literally, sticky notes will be stuck on a piece of paper with all positive comments. And that usually is super fun. And that after Instant Challenge, maybe when you meet back with the parents, is a really fun thing to go over and say, oh, wow, Emma, they really loved your costume. Oh, Zach, they really loved how you painted that backdrop. And so it's going to be all really, really positive comments for them just to end their day with.
So I do want to just step in a little bit about the expectations that you should be setting with your parents. Please remind your parents, and I think Susan's going to be talking about this in just a second, that the kids have done this themselves. And sometimes when you watch a Rising Stars performance, your parents are going to say, what was that? And that's okay, because it's the kid's story and it makes sense to them. So, just make sure that your parents are fully aware that the kids did everything, and that, it's not supposed to be a theater perfect performance at all.
Nope, that agreed. And that's where I'm moving with this interference. The more that you can have the kids do it, the more they're going to be proud of that. And the parents can be happy with that too, right? Like they should be. This is something their kid has done. So the interference policy, as it's written for the competitive challenges, does not apply. We are not giving you points. So if we notice interference, we're not going to, there's no points to remove. And we understand different, a 4-year-old, 5-year-old team is very different than a 7-year-old team. But the idea is we want you to be allowing the kids to do everything that they can do. Set that expectation that they can do this and that they should do this. So let the kids do as much as possible independently. Safety first, of course. If there's ever a safety concern, you are allowed to help them with that, or say, hey, you know what? This isn't safe for you to do as a 6-year-old. What's another way we might be able to attach this, blah, blah, blah. So always be mindful of that. Things the kids can do. They can make their own costumes. They can do their own makeup, do their own hair, right? They probably have a lot of fun doing that, actually. So make sure and you can show them techniques. You guys can watch videos or whatever and say, oh, look at how they made those tiger stripes on that face or whatever, help them learn how to do it. But when they do it, they're proud of that. They're obviously able to create, build, paint their props, make their scenery. They can do all that. You can use simple materials. You do not, this is not a professional, like Kate said, we're not going for the Emmy or the Golden Globe or something here, or an Oscar, or whatever it would be called for this. Cardboard boxes, poster board, there's plenty of materials that are lightweight, that kids are able to use. This doesn't have to be a really expensive, high-tech sort of thing. They can create their own scripts. They know what they want to say. They will have their play. They can figure that out. You want to, of course.
Susan, I'm sorry. You can write it for them if they tell you the story, because you might have, they might be able to tell you verbally a story and how it goes faster and more efficiently than if they are struggling to write it down. So again, if you have 2nd graders, I would think your 2nd graders could do more of the writing. But if you have little kinders, they might not know how to spell or write in a quick enough manner. So they can always dictate to you.
And the kids that can't really read anyway, a formal script is not necessarily needed, right? I mean, you certainly want a flow chart, or maybe you make a storyboard so that they know kind of what they're doing, but it doesn't need to be a formal script. That's not something you need to turn into us. So the main thing is you want those kids to feel proud of what they have done. Not what their parents did, not what their team manager did, but what they accomplished. And that's what sets DI apart from pretty much every other activity that we do. It's really all about the kids and what they have accomplished. Like think about soccer, even at these little kids' age. Think about soccer, and the kid is supposed to kick the corner kick. They don't just kick it. They look at their coach, and their coach tells them exactly where to kick it. But that goes even forward. Think about high school softball. A kid can't run from first base to second base without having the coach tell him what to do. So the beauty of the FDI is really that the kids, they do it all. It's their gig, and it's in their mind, it's a great thing, and that's fine. We want to celebrate that. Look at what you did. Did you have something you wanted to add, Kate? Okay. So I was going to move on to the actual challenge and the elements of the challenge so that you know what to expect or what to focus on. So as you know, you need to explore both fiction and nonfiction stories. And then the kids will develop a play that tells their own brand new story. And they'll bring that story to life with a pop-up book, which will be really fun to see. I'm curious what the kids are going to do for that. They also will need to create some sort of technical device to use in your play. And don't worry, I'm going to go into more detail about each of these. These are just the high points for the challenge. And the kids will practice their improv skills because they'll have to include a surprise item within their presentation. So in the story portion of your play, the kids will create and present a new story that combines parts of fiction and nonfiction stories you have read. Your play should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And that is tricky, that beginning, middle, and end, but that is critical. That is an element of DI that goes from now until they go all the way through university. They want to make sure they can do all those things. And that's also the nice part about doing those chain stories, or like you tell the beginning of a story, let the kids create the middle and then the end. Those are good things. Second, you need to have characters. Every team member does need to be in the play. The kids or the team can choose to be fictional and or non-fictional characters, whatever. The kids get to choose who their characters are in their story. Costumes. Every team member must wear a costume or should wear a costume that shows something about their character in the play. Have the kids do this. Once they've decided their character, they can brainstorm, gosh, what would a bear look like? What would a whatever look like? And it's really great if they can create something for their costume rather than just taking a Halloween costume they might already have. So encourage them to think about, how might we do this? Maybe they all have t-shirts where they've decorated them a certain way, or they've pinned designs to them, whatever. We know the age of them. We are not expecting this to be professional. We want it to be their gig. And that's what actually makes it even more cute, to see what they come up with, how they feel like they represent a snow leopard or whatever it is they're going to be. And then the pop-up book. So you are going to create, the team is going to create a life-size pop-up book that shows your setting and helps to tell your story. So this will be larger, right? This is going to be one of your larger elements, a life-size pop-up book showing your setting and helps you tell the story. You need, in the book, there needs to be at least 2 different pages. And every page should have at least one part that pops up or moves. So hopefully within your pop-up books, and you may have even already, you might want to do some introductory activities on how to make a pop-up book. Maybe, and now is a great time of year, maybe you make greeting cards that have a pop-up element. You know, you could make something for, you know, Thanksgiving cards that they deliver to the school office or to a nursing home or something, you know, or even to their family. But if they, maybe you can kind of Google around and find some interesting ways to make things pop up, and have the kids experiment with that. Technical device. Now this I've had some questions on before, and this is what I think it might seem a little tricky, but again, we know the age of the kids. It's okay. You're going to design and build a device that moves or does something to help tell your story. Your technical device can be a prop, a costume, a piece of scenery, part of your pop-up book, or anything else in your play. So I'm going to try to go back here. Okay, so look at this slide. Each page should have at least one part that pops up or moves. So those parts could move, or could be, a technical element could be part of that, right? Think like Simple Machines. Think, you know, when you're thinking of your technical, some of you may have been a team manager long enough to remember the Simple Machines Rising Star Challenge that there was, where they had to learn about that. But those are great things to get their ideas going. So every page has to have something that pops up or moves. So technically, the technical device could be part of that. It could be a prop. It could be, you know, some costume. Maybe their hat pops up off their head. I don't know. It could be whatever the kids sort of think of in that regard. Wait, hang on.
Susan, we have some questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we had a question about if there's performances from last year. I don't think I put up any Rising Stars performances, but on the Destination Imagination Colorado YouTube channel are elementary school and high school performances, but again, those aren't going to be Rising Stars. I think Susan might be able to add to this a little bit better, but I've seen everything from people literally sitting and staring at the judge for 8 minutes to kids standing in a straight line and telling each other their lines. And I've seen people bring on some, you know, cardboard props and then and then just move them around. So, I mean, I've seen, you don't see in Rising Stars like generally full on play practice performances in general, but Susan has seen more than I have.
Well, and it, like Kate said, it really depends on your group. Some groups do more than others. Sometimes you have one kid that maybe is a very vocal, sort of a theatrical kid. Sometimes what I have seen people do is maybe you have some kids that aren't very much that way and one kid that is, you could certainly have a narrator. Think about, having someone kind of describing the action, and some kids are doing the action, so to speak. But like Kate said, it really will run the gamut, and it's fine. Wherever your kids are at, that is what we want to see. We want to see what they have come up with. And you're certainly welcome at the performance to come a little early and watch a presentation before yours. It doesn't, obviously, if you're watching presentations on YouTube and it's 4th and 5th and 6th grade teams, it's not going to be anything like that. You would want to find ones that are the lower level kids, and it's going to be okay. Whatever you come up with is going to be just
It really is. We've had people do the wrong challenge and it's still okay. The question is, are we allowed to show the kids how to make a pop-up card, or is that interference? So the rules for interference are that you can team managers can teach, plan, mentor, guide. So if it falls in teaching or mentoring, sure, show them how to make a pop-up card. And then the kids are the ones that create and do. So when it comes to that, that's sort of the line you want to draw. Are you teaching them? Sure, go ahead and teach them how to make a pop-up card. They don't know intrinsically how to do that. So show them how to make a pop-up card and then try to see if they can do it themselves. What you don't want to do is do the pop-up book itself.
Right. So the nice thing now is if you have followed the timeline and you're not super into the challenge, you're all about in the learning phase right now. They haven't even decided what they're going to do. So you want to be exploring a lot of options. There was one year that I was a team manager it was a scientific team, and they had to learn about sound. I happened to be a science teacher, and I brought in just a whole bunch of different sound experiments that I had done in my classroom. And this kids just did experiments all day, learning about how to create sound, how to make sound, all different stuff. So right now you should be totally experimenting. There's no reason why you can't show them different ways to make pop-up cards. As long, the interference would be if you make these pop-up cards and then those pop-up cards that you made showed up in the performance. Like, it needs to be something that they need to create all of, the pieces that are going to be in the show. But teaching the different methods, a 5-year-old doesn't know how to make those. I don't even know if I know how to make all the kinds of pop-up cards that there are. So of course the learning curve is pretty steep, and that's okay. Do that, experiment. And as the kids are doing it, they might even come up with some different ideas of how to expand upon it or combine different ideas that you maybe wouldn't have even thought of. So I would absolutely have a day where you're just exploring that kind of stuff with the kids.
Sarah Stong gave us a pop-up resource, and it's called How to Make Super Pop-Ups by Joan Irvine, Irvine. That's How to Make Super Pop-Ups by Joan, Joan, Irvine, Irvine. And then Elijah has said that you can Google for Rising Stars videos on YouTube. I don't think we have any on our channel, but I'm sure other people do. And he says that they are few and far between.
It's probably families that have uploaded them. Yeah. Is my guess.
So just go to YouTube and Google Rising Stars Destination Imagination. That's it for our questions right now, Susan.
Okay, cool. So technical device, I think we got through this, and we can come back to it later if you have more questions. And then the other key piece that is the improv item. And the team will use a randomly should be in quotes, right? Because you're going to know what it is and you're going to bring it. But a randomly selected improv item in your play to help tell your story. And your team can use this item in any way you choose. And so in the prep area, which for Rising Stars will be your check-in area. It's where you'll come and you'll just make sure everybody's there, and we'll check you in. your team will choose a card, and the card is going to tell you what you're going to use in the play. And you know the items will either be a scarf, a cloth shopping bag, or a cardboard tube longer than 10 inches. So you're guaranteed to get one of those three things, and you need to bring those three things to the tournament. So make sure in your bag of goodies that you've brought, make sure that those things are in there. And they should be the things that the kids have seen before. Like ideally, you have had these at your meeting in January, February, and you guys are using them as they're constructing their play. So your team's not going to know which of those three they're going to need. However, they will know once we get that in the prep area. So they'll get that choice in the prep area, and probably within, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes of choosing that item is when they'll go on stage. So they'll have a little bit of time to adjust to that, but they're not going to recreate their whole entire play. So what that means is when you have developed, or when they're developing their play at home, they should be keeping that in mind, those three items. How will we use this scarf in this particular instance? Or how will we use the shopping bag? So it should be, make sure when they're writing that story that they're able to integrate those items into there somehow. Okay. There we go. Team choice elements. So this is something that is a big deal in the competitive challenges. And we would like you to try to incorporate these into the Rising Stars Challenge as well, just so that they're used to that as they go forward in DI. Team choice elements are a fun way to show the audience special things you can do. And then I've just kind of made a list here on my slides of various ideas. Oops, there we go. So it could be a poem that the kids have written. Maybe in their play, they have a special poem or chant or something. It could be an interesting prop. Maybe they spent a lot of time on a particular prop that they would really like to show that off to the appraisers. Evidence of teamwork. Maybe they, said, we all had to work together really hard to get this one thing done, and they can share that. Maybe they've written a song that is part of their play, a piece of art, a dance. Maybe they're doing something together there. Oops, let me go back. So these are all just different ideas. So as the kids, I would certainly introduce the idea of team choice element to them during it, but as they're going through developing things, especially at this age, there'll be some things that they really are into, a prop that they think is really cool. That's something that they should have as their team choice element. At this stage in the game, the team choice element doesn't have to be something they work on in advance thinking about, but just as you're going through the course of their preparations, maybe have an idea of, wow, that's something you guys spent a lot of time on. You're probably really proud of that. Maybe we should give that as a team choice element to the judges. And then, okay, so I think that's it about the actual challenge. I wanted to talk a little bit about instant challenge for you all.
Before we move on to instant challenge, does anybody have any questions about team choice elements or the challenge in general? Again, this seems like it might be a lot of elements, but a lot of them can fit into each other. And the penalty for not having all the elements is people loving your team, and the consequence for them to have all the elements is the same. So this is a chance for you to learn how to be team managers and for your team to learn how to be a team. And I promise you, regardless of what presents itself on stage, everyone is going to treat your team as if they have presented a gift to the appraisers. We are always very thrilled with our Rising Stars teams.
That is very true. Was there a question for anything yet?
Doesn't look like.
Okay, cool. So instant challenge, as you probably have realized, teamwork is very hard developmentally for this age group. They might work with someone or side by side with someone, but it's often hard to see true teamwork at this age. So because of that, often the Rising Stars instant challenges are in parallel. And what I mean by that is it could be make 6 towers. So maybe each kid is able to make a piece of something. Each child make a page of an alphabet book and tell a story that puts them all together. One of the challenges last year, the Rising Star Challenge, was the kids had to make a pizza, and they had scissors and markers and paper, and they had to make a pizza with a surprise ingredient and then tell a story about it. So everyone was able to contribute to the pizza, and then they kind of just put a little story together for that. You do want to practice instant challenge at every team meeting and discuss the instant challenge afterwards. In your team packet that you received, there are several, I'm just gonna pull mine here. There are several challenges to do, which are great ones to do. And the instant challenge, if you're doing a building challenge, you certainly want to make sure you have your materials beforehand set up and ready to go. And it also has ideas of processing questions for afterwards. You want to ask them, what went well? What did we do well together in this challenge? And then you can, of course, address the processing questions that are at the end of all those handouts. And then you can, it's not interference, instant challenge. You can show them how to do something better. Maybe they did a presentation, but they all talked to each other in a circle. There's no reason you can't say, hey, it might be better if you turn around and face me because then I can hear you better. You know, this is, instant challenge is a chance for you to help them build their skills. You can help them learn by doing stuff there. If they tried to build a tower and it didn't go so well, get down on the floor with them and build that tower with them. Show them some basic building skills. Show them how to do that better for the future. You want to, instant challenge is something that every team at a tournament, some feel success and some don't, but it's okay. It's something everybody can learn from that eventually. For Rising Stars, the challenge should be something that everybody is able to feel successful at. Everybody will be able to do a part and feel good about it at the end. The appraisers at Instant Challenge, and these are things that you can think about as you are sort of appraising their Instant Challenge as you're watching them. Did you have teamwork? Did you all work together or talk about what your story might be? Did you work together? Did you use the materials? The appraisers want to see that you used the materials that were given to them. Did you practice? Is it something where they had time to practice a little performance? Did they do that before they did their show for the appraisers? Was there a beginning, middle, and end to the performance? Are you having fun? These are the standard questions that the appraisers are going to ask or fill out a form after you do your instant challenge. So these are things that I wanted you to be aware of. And that appears to be the end of my slideshow. So are there any questions? Anything that you want me to review in more detail?
And if you have any questions about DI in general.
I also, let's see, we're going to email them the presentation, right, Kate?
Yep.
I also have a couple of things that I had used at my live training that I think I'll have Kate also attached to an email. One of them is, I don't know how to share this during this, but one of them is, it's a piece of paper that you can print on cardstock, and it's 3 dice. And you fold them, it's 3 6-sided thing. You fold them up. And one is like you roll it, and it says, I'm trying to think if I have it with me. Build a blah out of this that can do this. So each die has a different thing on it. And so if you're like if you have to constantly go to your meetings if it's not at your home, these would be things that would be easy. Like you can keep a bag of chenille stems, popsicle sticks, cups. Like there's some standard things that you can just kind of keep with you. And it's called roll a challenge. And the kids you can just roll the dice and here's your challenge for the day. And there's a second material. Go ahead.
You can also go online to your app store and you can download the Instant Challenge app, and that the kids, it's the same thing, and your kids just shake their phone, and they love it because it makes dingy dongy sounds, and then they have it will give them 3 elements that they have to put together an Instant Challenge with.
I know at my training in November there were a couple people that they're always going to a place for their stuff. So they were worried about bringing a lot of materials. And so those are kind of nice if you know in advance, hey, I can just always have these standard materials with me and I can do a challenge no matter what. So any questions?
Nope.
Concerns?
Well, thank you.
I didn't give my information, but my info will come with the email. Will it have my email?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Why don't you give your email, and then we have a great question. Okay.
So my email is my name, Susan Stirrup, SUSAN STIRRUP @iCloud.com.
Okay. So the question is, my team is having a hard time letting go of their own ideas and compromising. I know a lot of adults that have that problem, Sarah. What are good team building activities for 1st and 2nd graders to help them learn this skill? or are they at a place developmentally not to expect it?
Probably a little bit of both. Like, I think there probably are some kids that will struggle with. What I have done is, let's say they can't decide between, or every kid wants to do their own thing. You could always just throw them all in a hat and everybody draws, draw one, and this is what we're doing. You can also, like during your instant challenge, maybe you could do that different ways too. Or another way is to kind of split your team. Like if you have an instant challenge, maybe you have 6 kids, have them do the same instant challenge, but do 3 and 3. And that way everyone feels like their idea is heard. And then maybe compare the 2 things. Well, this one worked better because of this situation, but this had this neat element. Or, try to bring out maybe the good things about all of them and help them see how that stuff comes together.
Yeah. Sarah, I would also do some activities that show the kids that they need each other. So for instance, you could do like a fire brigade relay type of thing with balls, and then pull a kid out. And obviously you're going to have to construct this so they can't reach the next person, but see what happens when a team isn't complete, and didn't we miss having that person, etc. The other thing is for you to write all of their ideas on sticky notes, and so it's not in their handwriting, and then put it up on a wall, and then come back to the decision making after you do a physical activity. So either have them run around the block, or have your snack, or whatever you do, and then come back to the decision making. Sometimes what happens is that the kids start thinking of the best idea rather than their idea. The other thing that you can do when you have the sticky notes up is have the kids arrange the sticky notes in things that are similar. So let's say you're trying to pick up a character, and the character is you might have a clown and an acrobat and a dog and a walrus and a cloud. Like, how do those group together? Because once you start grouping them together, then kids see more similarities than differences. And finally, another great way, it's a tool called Force Fit, is so let's say people really want to be the dog and the acrobat. Can't you have a dog acrobat? So that kids push their ideas together to get actually a stronger, more creative idea. I hope those helped, Sarah. It is, so rising stars, I think developmentally are tricky. I think they have the widest developmental stage, the developmental gap, especially if you have a team of 5, 6, 7-year-olds, 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, there's a big difference between early 5s and late 5s, let alone a early 5 and a late 7. So, yeah.
And that's evident too, during the presentations, a team of and when we're watching them as appraisers, a team of 5-year-olds has a very, very different presentation than a team of 7-year-olds. And it's okay. It's fine. Every kid is where they're at. It's going to be okay. I'm sure if you guys any of you are teachers or have done any elementary school stuff, everyone kind of evens out around 3rd grade. The kids that grew real fast at the beginning, maybe slow off and so forth. So Kate's absolutely right. We're in this big range here where it's okay, but it's celebrated, there's still a lot of good.
And do like when they come, the other thing I often say is, we're going to make 30 decisions today or 500 decisions in the next 2 months. Today, let's have Joe make the decision. And next week, let's have Sarah make the decision, because every decision can build on each other. And there's so many decisions to make that sometimes with older kids, I always say, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But let's try to find the compromise position. But sometimes just giving different people the lead helps too. All right. There are no more questions? Well, thanks for joining us in the middle of the day. We are going to be posting this online, and Susan is going to be emailing me all of her documents, and I will send them out to the list. And Susan, can you repeat your email again?
Yes. So Susan Stirrup at iCloud.com. SUSANSTIRRUP, like the real word stirrup, at iCloud.com.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you. You guys all have a good afternoon and enjoy your weekend.
Yes. Thank you.